You're listening to Sound Opinions. I'm Greg Cott with Jim DeRogatis. We're here at the City Winery with Los Lobos. Welcome, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes. David, Cesar, Louis, Conrad, Steve, what an honor to have you guys. We said, and we don't say this about many people, being rock critics, one of the best bands in America, in American history.
Thank you.
42 years. That sounds like an absurd number. To get some of the history, you know, we're celebrating your legacy, your career. There's a new Chris Morris book and a fantastic new album as well. We'll get to the present. But, David, the roots in high school, a million years. East Garfield, right?
Well, Garfield High School. In East LA.
What was the genesis of this band 42 years ago?
Well, you know, we all met in high school,
Yeah.
and we're all, you know, playing in different bands and liked the same records. That was the start of it.
A lot of doo-wop from what I've read, right? Was part of it?
Well,
Drifters?
On the east side, yeah. I mean, R&B and soul music and doo-wop. It was real. We called them oldies back then.
Moldies.
Oldies, yeah.
Oldies. Well, there's this
Oldies but goodies.
long-time term in Chicago. It's Dusties.
Oh, yeah?
Dusty
Oh,
radio.
that's good.
That's what
That's
Kanye West looks for, the perfect Dusty sample, right? But it was you and Louis at the beginning, right?
No, I started the band.
Ah.
All
But
by
everybody
himself.
Let's get that straight.
It was, all right. 42
For
years
some
you've been
reason.
trying to correct that impression.
Yeah.
Well, the four of you were
We
all
were-
living within blocks of each other.
Yeah, we
basically,
lived
right?
around East LA, the neighborhood, man. You know, we all went to high school together, like Dave said. We were part of the local young rockers. You know, everybody. There was a band in every corner, and we were already rock and roll kids. But then me and this other guy started fooling around with Mexican music and stuff, and then we called Louis and Dave and everybody else in the band, and we were still for a couple of years. We were still, you know, like Louis and Dave had a rock band, and I had my own funk band, and you know, some kind of a R&B band, and Conrad had his big power trio group, and but I started messing around with Mexican music. Me and Frank Gonzalez, and we were getting into like the old traditional Mexican music. And so kind of started the thing, and it just kind of snowballed from there. But along the way, some of us still had our rock groups, you know. I was playing in dance clubs and stuff like that for a little while. It went on for a couple of years, but then the Los Lobos thing just got a little more popular. You know, it became more demanding, and there was just more to it, you know. So we started playing colleges and all that stuff, and we would do small talk little like seminars about Mexican folk music and all that stuff. So basically, it was all about, you know, the whole Mexican folk thing. You know, we were all into and we were excited about it and stuff, and that's kind of what got us here.
Well, Chris Morris's book, Dream in Blue, that just came out about the band. Louis, you got a great quote in there. If you are a Chicano and you got married between 1973 and 1980 in East LA, we probably played your wedding. And
off a year or two.
Mostly kids are rebelling against their parents' music, but you guys embraced your parents' music and turned that into a way to make a living for a decade. How did that work? Why this tremendous love for that music that most kids at that age are rebelling against that stuff?
They fed us.
Good answer.
Were there similarities between the Mexican folk music and what was happening in LA in the punk world? Because you wind up signed to Slash Records. And I mean, both outsiders in some ways, both anti-authoritarian. I don't want to make the case for you, but I heard it when I first fell in love with Los Lobos music. I wonder if you guys did from the beginning.
What?
Being punk rockers. I mean, one of the most punk things you can do is play folk music or doo-wop, right? Or just take music back, right? You don't need glitz and glamour. It's taking
Yeah,
it.
there was
keeping it
some
real.
of that. There was that. We played it with the same attitude we played Blue Cheer with. You know, we got into the folk music, and we started hearing stuff. Like for me, I started hearing things I hadn't heard before. You know, like some of the regional stuff, and try to figure it out. And I was like, wow, man, this is amazing. And I mean, there was so much to learn. So it was the musician part kicked in and said, man, I want to learn this stuff. I wanna know. And then being it was our background, our culture, it meant a lot. So we tapped into something that was important to us.
You guys infamously played a gig opening for Public Image Limited on their first U.S. tour in 1980. A lot of people talk about that as a transition point. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you see that gig, or were you aware of that gig? So Steve Berlin was not in the band yet. He was in another band in L.A. at the
He
time.
was
6
throwing
other
stuff
bands.
at us.
Yeah. Man of many, many hats. Steve, what was your recollection of that gig?
My recollection was it was like a, like sort of what I imagine, like the Roman, you know, when they pit the, you know, they have the fights in the Colosseum. It was sort of just this incredible onslaught of violence and horribleness directed at these poor guys just standing up there playing these little guitars.
Conrad,
Sense was that they sent them out there to like draw the fire so that when Public Image went on, they'd be out of ammo.
Conrad's over there cracking up. Is that true, Conrad? Is he telling the story pretty correctly?
Pretty much.
Yeah. What was the
was
hardest
tough.
thing that was thrown at you when you guys were up there?
When the big bottles started coming.
Well, they were
First it
throwing
was-
quarters too, and they were trying to make it into the guitarron hole, you know. So
That
they
was
kept
me.
hitting me, man.
I was doing that. Just trying to go easy on them.
Yeah, man, they were
I wasn't
throwing
going for his
all kinds of shit. But we understood it, you know. It's like, okay, this is punk rock, right? All right, that's cool.
You go to
We shouldn't be here, but you know, it was Tito Larriba, the guy that got a hold of us to do this gig. Hey, man, you guys should do it. It'll be fun. It'll be great. Yeah.
Yeah, but where is Public Image today, huh? You know, who's still here?
But we were fans of Public Image, you know. We were fans of all that stuff. We were fans of that stuff, and we took everything in, and we listened to a lot of stuff, you know. We had respect for all that stuff, and we knew that it was a cool thing, and then then we wound up there, right? We wound up in that whole with Slash Records and stuff like that. So we wound up, through the '80s, playing at all the punk rock clubs and stuff like that, and some of our best friends were punk rocks, you know, that kind of thing. And we were in the middle right there somewhere.
Yeah, you didn't exactly fit into that world at first, but that transition, as Louis said in his very pithy but accurate answer, you guys got paid when you did weddings, and you went from making, I guess, several hundred bucks a gig to
nothing.
nothing, right? So did you
Seriously.
Playing for a 12-pack.
It was exactly that. I mean, you know, for kids, you know, hanging around and doing. I mean, we did well financially. It was great. And then, yeah, we had to take a step down. I mean, we played over at those little clubs for like $75, or, you know, for $100 for the night and for the whole band
Yeah.
and stuff. You know, we understood it, and we kind of hung in there for about a year and a half till we got signed and all of that. You know, as soon as we got signed, and I was going to USC at the time, and I was on a scholarship and all that. I was getting into music education and all that, and then as soon as we got signed, we had, you know, an attorney, and we had a booking agency. We had the whole everything, right? And then it was like, all right. I went back to USC one day, got all my stuff, and you never looked back and said, this is what we're gonna do. And we bought a little van, and we laughed our way across the U.S. from there on, you know.
For $85.
And you still weren't getting fed.
Yeah. We said, yeah, man, after
Obviously.
this tour, we could hardly wait to go back to our weddings, man, get paid, you know.
Make
When-
some real money.
When's the last time you guys played a wedding? Is there like a friend or something who came up recently and said, hey, would you guys
Every
step up?"
once in a long while, you know, we have some good friends that'll
Yeah.
hang out for a while. And, hey, we're getting married, man, and they'll bug us for a while, and then, you know. the
That's
people
got to
that-
be the coolest person in the world who gets to get Los Lobos play your wedding.
They fed us well,
There you go.
And you got paid, right?
and we got, well, yeah.
95.
You know, in the beginning, the first couple of records are essentially what you guys are doing live. And then over the years, Los Lobos becomes a very sophisticated studio band where you're taking the listener, and of course I'm heading up to the masterpiece, Kiko. You're creating worlds that don't exist on stage, right? That exist only in that space between the headphones. What was that evolution like? You know, but always been a great live band, still a great live band. In the studio, what was that evolution like?
It took a little while. It took a few years to get comfortable, because the way we used to do things, you'd book some time and you'd come up with ideas and rehearse them and all this kind of stuff, and then you go in and try to get it done as soon as you can, because and that was the way we used to do things, and it was kind of intimidating, but it was it wasn't until when we started working with Mitchell and Chad, Mitchell Froome and Chad Blake. We did the Neighborhood before that, which is, I think it's a good album, but there was a lot of going back and forth with the record company and stuff, so it kind of took a little the joy out of it,
Put a shadow over that.
Yeah. So we got together with Mitchell and Chad. They had gone through the same experience, so they were ready to go crazy too. So we were all in the right, the same headspace, and
Yeah, we
know?
used to go into pre-production. You form the arrangement and everything. Okay, then you have this thing in your head, right? You go in the studio and you record, and you hope that it was like what we did in the rehearsal thing, And it was like that for all through the '80s, and it was terrible, And so then when we got into, like Dave says, when we met Mitchell and Chad and stuff like that, they felt the same way. We were like, we don't want to do a effing record like that again, man. And we just went in there, whatever. So a lot of the stuff we did was just kind of already almost like the atmosphere was there. We went down onto tape that way. So
Yeah.
we didn't sweeten it up at the end, which is a typical way of recording, You record it and then you do things to it later on, So we took a different approach, man. I was like tired of all that stuff. Dave too. I mean, we started, just kind of like when we were performing live and just kind of take that idea and just bam, let's lay it down like that,
I remember we're working on a song, that Angels with Dirty Faces, and I told Chad, I said, man, some backward guitar would sound good on that. So he flips over the tape, go it on, He puts the tape, he flips it over, and it hits play. He goes, that's, really? I can do that?
Yeah. It opened things up.
We can goof off in the studio?
Yeah, ain't
play
nobody
around.
gonna say shit about it, It's like,
Yeah,
Yeah, psychedelic record, really. And
it is.
I see like a whole period of experimentation. It seemed like having your biggest hit, kind of, you got a reaction to it in terms of, we don't like it here. It seemed like, and it was it was an odd place that you guys ended up with, having a #1 song in the country with La Bamba, the cover of La Bamba. You immediately went into the studio and made a Mexican record. I mean, that was your reaction to having your biggest hit. Your management, your record company, everybody, they were probably like that audience at the Pill Show that wanted to just throw things at you at that point. But what was your determination to take this 180 route from making the Mexican record and making a Kiko record? Was that a direct response to just not feeling like this is where we belong? Louis, what do you think?
I do that once in a while. I think maybe we were experiencing a little bit of an identity crisis. We suddenly were known by just that one song. And we had, you can count how many years we had before that. It was at least 12, 13, 14 years as a band.
Mm-hmm.
So people wrote all over the place that we committed commercial suicide by putting out that record. But I think for us it was just a matter of just getting back on track and taking the focus we had of that huge worldwide hit and put the spotlight on something that really meant a lot to us, and that was our music from our heritage. so we put out a record of traditional Mexican music. I think for us, we got a big kick out of the notion that somebody in Helsinki would be listening to a huapango. Right. Somebody in Sapporo would be listening to son jarocho. I think I'm not going to say that we're on this political soapbox or anything, but I think there's a lot of bang you get out of that, more than just following it up with La Bamba #2 or something,
Right, sure. Well, you guys proved it, and the longevity proves it, I think, as well. I think it's so remarkable that the core four have been together for 42 years. Steve is the baby of the group, and he's been together with you guys for 30 years now.
He just joined yesterday. Yeah.
Steve, I do have to ask you a question about that, though. You left a really successful band to play with these guys, and you've never left. Do you want to give us any? You don't want to speak out of turn here, but what happened there? Why would you want to leave a band that was already several rungs above to join these guys and have stuck with them? What was it you heard back in the day that made you want to be a part of this band?
Well, it was a number of things. The fact that we had two great singers, not just one. We had this, universe of choices musically to make. Blues, Latin, R&B, soul. As much as I love the Blasters, and I still do, the Blasters they did one thing incredibly well, and they were, Dave and Phil are getting along great these days, but back in those days, every day was like a cage match. It was made the WWE look like checkers. And that got tiresome, I have to say. Every day was just fighting about the weather, or fighting about the direction they were going to drive the van. I mean, it got tiresome, and these guys have always been very collegial, and so a lot of it was just lowering my stress level. It took me a couple years to actually lower my stress level, but I got there eventually.
Plus, you got fed.
And I got fed, right?
Yeah.
Food
Comes
was a
down
million
to
times
that.
better.
Louis, you said you didn't want to get political. I'm going to ask you guys to get political. David, I read a great quote, I think it was with an English newspaper, that America today is in a much more agitated place. There's more dialogue about racial matters. It's discussed more openly than when we started in the 70s. But you think in a lot of ways some things are worse. There was a candidate for President of the United States last night doubling down. He's going to build this wall with Mexico, and he's going to make the Mexicans pay for it.
Well, I heard somewhere that I forget who said it, but that if the Mexicans are going to build it, then they'll just put in a door.
But we are at this weird place, and you seem to be talking about that to the English.
Yeah, well, everybody knows. I mean, things are really, charged right now. It's a lot of shit going on, or stuff going on,
Yeah.
in the world, and it's not no secret.
Yeah, but you guys are an American band.
Yeah.
You know.
See?
Yeah. What is the burden? When I interviewed you at home, and we went to a restaurant, and one of the things, short of being backstage with Kurt Cobain and seeing the way people approached him, what he meant to them, right? And he had an interesting thing. He would always, they'd ask for an autograph. He would always give them the pen back, or take their pen, and he would sign their hand, which I thought was a very interesting, saying, I'm not special, you can be special, right? It was kind of like that. We're walking around heading to this restaurant, your place, you always go, and the way people would come up on the street, what you meant to people. Do you feel there's a special sense of community that Los Lobos has created in these 40 years?
Yeah, I think so. We've made a lot of friends, a lot of true friends, real friends over the years, and we're grateful for all of it, and so if someone wants to say hello, I'm glad they want to,
Yeah, but can the music? What about any of you guys? Can the music help heal in these crazy times when we want to build walls?
Yeah.
Well,
Cesar, how?
it doesn't hurt.
Doesn't
you
hurt.
know? You know what I mean? It does help, yes. I believe it does. That's all I got to say.
Does help.
Yeah. So, new album, Gates of Gold, just came out, 17th studio album. I don't know how many of you have heard it. Louis and I actually talked about this record a few weeks ago. I interviewed him for the Tribune, and he turned the tables on me, and he started asking me questions. He goes, "Do you critics take us for granted? Do we, do you pay attention anymore?" And I had to be honest with him. I said, I think a lot of critics, when you're not the new hot thing anymore, they move on to let's find the new thing. The one thing that struck me about Gates of Gold is I didn't hear a band that was phoning it in. I didn't hear a band that was going through the motions, like making the same record again. A couple tracks here, When We Were Free, There I Go. If I'd heard a new band do those records, I would have been doing handstands and going, wow, this is the new thing. This is amazing. And Los Lobos is doing it in their 42nd year. So the fact that you have this longevity and are able to maintain a very high standard, not only maintaining the ties to your early stuff, but stretching yourselves. David, where does that come from within the band? It seems like you guys go into a record and you don't, it's like, okay, we're not going to give them the same thing. We want to stretch ourselves. How difficult is that for the band to make a record like that at this point in your career when you have sort of said it all in some ways, and in other ways you feel like there's more to be said?
It's scary, every time we go in, we avoid it till the last minute, and then we sit in the parking lot to make sure that somebody else is there before you walk in, Just don't want to be the first guy there. But over the years we've gotten to where, we're lazy for one. We don't prepare before we go in. We might have a few ideas, it's something to start with,
Right.
but that's, I don't know. It's just I guess we must still care. We still want to do something that we haven't done before, or at least, or go back, some in some ways, just similar, or familiar territory. But it's just, I guess we still believe in it. I guess, and we just want to do.
Is it discouraging
new
at
all
all?
the
The
time.
recorded music is not, I don't know if it was ever a meal ticket, but it certainly was, there was some income from it. Now that the bottom has dropped out from the sales of recorded music in a lot of ways, is that discouraging at all to even want to make a record in that sort of environment?
Yeah, it is. You don't know if anybody's going to hear it, but you do it anyway. And it's part of, now it's, all the bands, you have to make money on the road now, so touring is more important than before. And so we sell our CDs and T-shirts at the gigs. That's the only place to sell them now. Not the only place, but it's, we get the money in our pocket.
Right. Conrad, how many shows a year are you guys doing?
Probably about 120 at least, somewhere in there.
That's a lot of shows.
Yeah.
And again, you guys all have families?
Oh, yeah.
You have roots, you have home. Cesar, is it tougher and tougher every year to go away from that when you're on the road as much as you guys are?
It's always tough, man. It's not easy, leaving home and stuff. And yeah, it's just.
But is it still worth it to you? Obviously it is, right?
Well, we love to play.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We love to play, and the hard part is the travel.
Well, it beats hard mopping right in the middle of July.
Well, there was a disquieting quote from us fans in the LA Times. You did this weird record release party and book celebration at a mortuary, right?
It used to be a mortuary.
Former mortuary. And Mando, your longtime road manager, said, we wanted to do it here in the neighborhood. There was a feeling with this album and this album launch that maybe this was the last time.
But at a mortuary, yeah.
That was him. Now, maybe he was just screwing around with the LA Times.
We
It's
just wanted to
possible.
keep it real, right?
Yeah, maybe.
For real.
Is the band, are you starting to see an end date?
Not me. I don't know about you guys.
No, I don't know. Because of the same situation that we're talking about, having, there's nowhere to, records don't sell. They don't mean as much. Well, they do for the people that hear the stuff If it means something to you, it means something to you. But it's not as big a deal anymore. So it gets, like you said, it gets to the point where, why do another album? You know, who's gonna? But we do. And we'll do it again probably.
All right.
Yeah, we still have,
And it creates interest. It creates interest. People want to come and see the band because of the record, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you guys still play new
It
material.
serves a purpose. It's
You know, you still play the records, and these are new songs, and they're fresh to you guys. There's bands who have been on the road for 40 years. They don't do records, and when they do them, they don't really play that material. They're playing 40-year-old songs, 30-year-old songs. That's their set
You've
list.
been to our show.
You always have surprises, David. That's why I keep coming. We so appreciate Los Lobos being our guest here at the City Winery on Sound Opinions. Thanks, guys, for doing this.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having
Very
us.
much. Thank you so much.